The Buccaneers schedule is here, and we take a look at the electric season opener the Bucs have in store for them, as well as an interesting pattern that emerged that just might be a good thing for Tampa Bay.
You are Locked On Buccaneers, your daily Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, and welcome into the Locked On Bucs podcast. I am your host, James Yarcho, and coming up today, we are diving into all the schedule reactions, including 3 primetime games this season. Nailed that one on my predictions, but let's kick things off with the schedule, and it starts off with an absolute barn burner on the road. In the interest of time, all of these games are 1 o'clock starts unless I specify otherwise. Week 1 at the Cincinnati Bengals. Week 2 versus the Cleveland Browns. Week 3 versus the Minnesota Vikings at 4:05. Week 4 versus the Green Bay Packers. Week 5 at the Cowboys on Thursday Night Football. Week 6 versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. Week 7 at the Carolina Panthers. Week 8 versus the Atlanta Falcons. Week 9 at the Chicago Bears on Sunday Night Football. Then the Week 10 bye. Love to see that. Week 11 at the Detroit Lions. Week 12 versus the Carolina Panthers on Monday Night Football. Week 13 versus the Los Angeles Chargers. Week 14 at the Baltimore Ravens. Week 15 versus the New Orleans Saints. Week 16 at the Atlanta Falcons. Week 17 versus the Los Angeles Rams. And then closing out the season on the road against the New Orleans Saints. Now, the final 3 games at Atlanta versus the Rams, at the Saints. Those are all to be determined. Those games do not have a scheduled start time. They may even be played on a Saturday. They are in that realm where they can be a Saturday or a Sunday game. I think the NFL is kind of waiting to see how the playoff picture works out before they solidify those times. But the first thing that jumps out to me is that after week 1, the Buccaneers get 3 straight home games against the Browns, Vikings, and Packers. Now, we'll get into some predictions a little bit later, but there's a very real possibility that the Bucs can start off 4-0 here. The Bengals are historically slow starters with Joe Burrow. He's just 2-4 in week 1 games since being drafted, while Baker Mayfield has more touchdown passes in Cincinnati than any other opposing quarterback since 2018. Now, I want you to think about that for a minute. Baker Mayfield has not been in the AFC North since 2022, but he still has more touchdown passes in Cincinnati than Lamar Jackson, who plays there every single season. Baker has played in Cincy just 4 times, and he has 1 more touchdown pass than Lamar Jackson, who has played there 7. Now, as notoriously slow as the Bengals have been starting their seasons, the Bucs have gone at least 2-0 every year since Todd Bowles became head coach. Obviously, we're going to get into the X's and O's of that game later on this year, but I think the Bucs have a little bit of an advantage here. The Bengals are largely the same team as they have been, while the Bucs are going to have a new offense with new offensive coordinator Zach Robinson and without Mike Evans, while having a ton of new faces on defense. So I think it'll be a little bit harder to prepare for the Bucs than it will be for the Bengals. But beyond that, you get the Baker Mayfield revenge game against the Browns as the home opener. Then you get the Vikings, who are a hot mess at quarterback. Then you get a Packers team that will not have Micah Parsons as he works his way back from a torn ACL. So while the Bengals and Packers are likely both going to wind up being playoff teams, this opening month of the season really pans out nicely for the Bucs. Then you get into the next quarter where you're at Dallas in prime time. That's going to be a tough one on a short week. Coming off of the game against the Packers, I could see that being a game where the Bucs struggle a little bit. Home against the Steelers, at Carolina, home against the Falcons. So the first division games come in this section, and they're back-to-back. The Steelers, not too worried about them either. With Aaron, without Aaron, they weren't an overly impressive team last year with him. I can't imagine that either with him or without him, they're going to be all that impressive. And I can't imagine that Will Howard is going to be lighting things up if Aaron Rodgers decides not to play. The Carolina and Atlanta games are interesting, of course, in the most important ones. Heading to Carolina as the first division game, to me, is actually the best case scenario for the Bucs. You need to be able to go there against the defending division champs and set the tone for how this division is going to play out. You send that message in your first chance at divisional action that last year was a fluke. Now, Canales, to his credit, has done a good job against the Bucs since becoming the head coach of Carolina, so it will be a tough game. And then the other big Baker revenge game where Stefanski comes to town, so you know Baker is going to be super hyped. The next quarter of the season, you're at Chicago on Sunday Night Football, then a bye week at the Lions the Sunday before Thanksgiving, home against the Panthers, and home against the Chargers. This, again, pretty ideal. You knew that you had to go to Chicago, but this is early enough in the year that it shouldn't be the bitter, nasty, cold Chicago. It'll be chilly for sure, but it's probably not going to be the snow flurries, the sub 30-degree temperatures, all of that. Then you get the Lions the Sunday before Thanksgiving. This has all the makings of a trap game. Like, honestly, it does. The Lions have to host Chicago 4 days after they host Tampa Bay. They're obviously going to be more worried about winning the divisional game than just a conference game. The Bucs are going to have a chance to really steal one in Detroit. But here's where the interesting pattern that I mentioned at the top of the show comes into play. These two games, against the Bears, against the Lions, that is the closest the Bucs are going to be. It's the closest that they will be to having back-to-back games on the road. Yes, it is back-to-back games, but there's a bye week in between. Other than that, the Buccaneers do not travel back-to-back weeks all year long. That hasn't happened in 36 years. Shout out to Scott Smith, who pointed out how long it has been since the Buccaneers did not have to go on the road in back-to-back weeks. They have two stretches where they get at least 2 consecutive home games. You have 3 of them from weeks 2 to 4. And then in this quarter with the Panthers and the Chargers. That's a long road trip for the Chargers. They're going to be coming off a Sunday night game against the Patriots the week before. But no back-to-back weeks on the road all season long for the Buccaneers. Then we get into the final stretch where the Bucs will face the Saints twice in a month. At the Ravens, home against the Saints. At Atlanta, home against the Rams. At the Saints to end the season. That game against Baltimore is going to be a chilly one. And although the Bucs bounce back and forth between home and away, they don't travel far during the final 4 weeks. You're home, then you go to Atlanta, then you're home, then you go to New Orleans. Those are 2 of the shortest road trips that the Bucs could possibly take in the NFL, and they are the 2 shortest road trips that they can take this season. So that's not going to be a huge deal. Before I get too deep into this quarter and this particular run of games, I do want to jump into the comment section for just a minute. We got Chris in the chat. Bowles has started 2-0 for 3 straight seasons. I'm telling you, the Bucs are going to end up beating the Bengals in week 1. The Bengals always start off slow. The Bucs always start off hot. Of course, you could have the inverse. It happens. I know a lot of people will be concerned because I will be there, and we all know how I've done in terms of my record when covering games. The last game that I covered was in Cincinnati, and the Buccaneers won. So everybody, we're all going to be okay. We got Sirio Miller. Love that we get the Bengals early. I really do too, because that is going to be a huge test for this defense right from the jump. You have one of the more prolific offenses in the NFL that have done it year after year after year when they are healthy. That is going to be a huge test for this new look defense that Todd Bowles is going to be running. You don't have Levante David, but you've added Reuben Bain. You've added Ashawn Robinson. You've added Al-Quadin Muhammad and Keontae Scott and Alex Anzalone. You've added all of these pieces. So what is this new defense going to look like? They are going to have an opportunity to make a statement right out of the gate against one of the projected best offenses in the NFL. If I'm Cincinnati, I'm a little bit concerned that we still have not invested in protection for our franchise quarterback in Joe Burrow. And now all of a sudden he's going to have to go up against Vita Vea and Reuben Bain and Yaya Diaby and Al-Quadin Muhammad and Ashawn Robinson. Just saying, it could be a little dicey for Bengals fans going into that one when their quarterback doesn't exactly have the best injury history. And then we also have Sirio Miller saying no 4-game skid this season. We'll get into the predictions in a little bit, Miller. We'll see how I see this shaking out. But where are the easiest and toughest stretches for the Buccaneers this season? That is coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Stream anything, order food in minutes, do everything from our phones, and somehow buying tickets to live events still feels way harder than it should. Long lines, confusing checkouts, prices jumping at the last second. It shouldn't be that complicated. That's why there's Game Time. It gives fans the advantage and makes getting tickets fast and simple. You guys know that I've used Game Time for sporting events, for concerts. It's always the first place that I look when my sons want to go to a game or a show. And the best part is how easy they make everything. What I see is what I pay. There's no surprises when I get to checkout, and we can view our seats. We can get the view from those seats so we know exactly what to expect when we get to the venue. And they constantly have zone deals for even bigger savings. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets to every type of event with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account. Redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Support for today's episode comes from Square, the system that helps fix one of the biggest headaches in running a business. Starting a business is exciting, but actually running it, that's where things can get complicated fast. Payments, inventory, staff, scheduling, online orders, it's a lot to manage. That's why Square brings everything together into one connected system. Square helps you take payments, track sales, manage inventory, and keep your business running smoothly without juggling a bunch of disconnected tools. One thing that I've noticed at some of my favorite local spots, like a vinyl store that I take my son to down the road, it's how seamless everything feels when they use Square. Checkout is quick, receipts are easy, and the whole experience just feels more organized. I even used Square in the past as a way to run fundraisers for my son's hockey team. I can personally vouch that the process could not be any easier. If you're starting a business or running one that deserves better tools, Square helps you sell, manage, and grow without slowing down. Right now, you can get up to $200 off Square hardware at square.com/go/lockedonnfl. That's SQUARE.com/GO/lockedonnfl. Run your business smarter with Square. Get started today. Thank you again for making Locked On Bucs your first listen review every day. And thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. Don't forget to check out the Everydayer Club for ad-free episodes and access to a group chat with me and other listeners of the show. Click the link in the show notes. Go to lockedonbucs.supercast.com. All right. I said I was going to talk more about that final stretch after getting to the comments. And that's exactly what I'm going to do right now, because I think that final 5-week stretch for the Buccaneers is their toughest and most difficult of the season. First off, while you're not traveling far, you're still bouncing back and forth between home and away. So that's going to wear on you a little bit. But let's break this thing down further. The Bucs have struggled mightily against the Ravens, more specifically, the Lamar Jackson Ravens. Baltimore has won 6 in a row, and the Bucs haven't beaten Baltimore. Are you guys ready for this? Since 2002. So I'm not saying that they're guaranteed to win a Super Bowl if they beat Baltimore. I'm just saying that the only time the Bucs have ever won in Baltimore, they went on to win the Super Bowl. Just throwing that out there. Since 2018, the games have been relatively close. Now, the last meeting ended 41-31. The score is closer than that game was, but that, of course, was famously when Chris Godwin and Mike Evans both went down. Time before that was 2022 when Shaq Barrett went down and the Bucs lost 27-22. In 2018 in Baltimore, the Ravens won 20-12. So that alone is going to be a tough game. Lamar Jackson is a difficult quarterback to go against. Derrick Henry is a Hall of Fame running back. It's going to be a tough game. That said, if they lose, not the end of the world. It's an AFC opponent. It's not going to hurt you. Then you get into the meat and potatoes of this final stretch. 3 divisional games in the final 4 weeks with 2 of them on the road over the final 3 weeks. And the game in between is a team that it feels like the Bucs have not beaten since Sean King was their quarterback. The Rams have won 4 of the last 5 and 9 of the last 11 games against the Buccaneers going back to 2012. The Bucs won in 2019 in that wild 55-40 game, and then they won in 2022 16-13. Other than that, it has been all Rams. So having that sandwiched in between the Falcons and the Saints to end the season is not going to be easy. The Saints, we'll see who they really are, but you're talking about a situation where the Bucs may need to win all 3 of those divisional games at the end of the year in order to secure a playoff spot, and maybe one or both of the teams that they're facing will have to do the same. For the sake of interest by the NFL world, it's exciting. That's why those games are to be determined in terms of what day and what time they will be played on. But it adds a ton of pressure to the teams playing in those games with the postseason and potential seeding on the line. Not only that, but 2 of those 3 divisional games are on the road. Atlanta and New Orleans are not going to be kind environments for the Bucs at all, especially Atlanta after the jarring that Baker did about Stefanski. This is a tough stretch because of having 3 divisional games, 4 conference games over the last 4 weeks, plus 3 of 5 on the road. Definitely cannot be where the Bucs have their annual 4-game losing streak. You cannot afford for it to be in that stretch. That would be disastrous. It would be basically a replay of last year. You lose 4 games in a row down those final 5 games, and you're cooked. You're not making the postseason. As far as the easiest stretch in the schedule this year, I honestly think it's the opening 4 weeks. I think that played out really well for Tampa. The Cincinnati game is going to be tough, no doubt about it, but you're catching Green Bay without Micah Parsons. You're getting Cleveland as the home opener, which the team was already going to be fired up about, but now you have the added revenge game for Baker. And then you get the Vikings, who will either have J.J. McCarthy or Kyler Murray at quarterback. And either way, I don't think the Bucs should be overly concerned with who the quarterback is, because neither one of them is a good quarterback. So while there's no real soft spots in the schedule, the Bucs do have a lot of tough teams that they have to face in 2026. But as far as the opening stretch, this is pretty ideal. You don't have any cold weather games. You don't have back-to-back weeks on the road. You have a semi-decent bye week. It's much better than Evan or I projected it to be. You know, Evan thought it was going to be early on in the schedule. I thought it was going to be either the first 2 or the last 2 bye weeks. Instead, it's pretty close to right in the middle. You get 9 games and you're on a bye. It's perfect. All in all, this is about as solid of a schedule as you can ask for right now. I don't even really see any trap game situations. Thursday night against Dallas, I already said that one's going to be tough because you're coming off the game with Green Bay. But then you have the Bears in Chicago for the second primetime game, and then you're on a bye week the next week. Monday night against Carolina, and then you have the Chargers at home the next week. You're not going to look past the Browns to get ready for the Vikings. Like, you're not in that situation. Maybe you get caught up a little bit looking past Pittsburgh in week 6, because then you have the first divisional game in week 7 and you have back-to-back divisional games. So you could get caught slipping there a little bit. But I would say that there aren't any easy stretches, but there aren't any incredibly brutal stretches either. If the final 5-week run is something that the Bucs can get through as they make a push for the postseason, that might be what helps propel them to have some postseason success. That is a run that is going to take a ton of focus, ton of preparation, the right mentality to come out of it with 3 or 4 wins. If you can face that gauntlet and come out on top more often than not, that's going to do wonders for your postseason confidence. Want to jump into the chat again real quick. We got Blue. I'm just going to call you Blue because there's a whole lot of numbers after that. We can easily win 5 in the division. We got Sirio Miller, 11-6, sweeping the Falcons and splitting with the Saints and Panthers. Joe 2, the sequel. My goal is to meet the 49ers in the playoffs and send them home. Shout out to the Chargers real quick for their schedule release video. I know it stings, but they did a great job of kind of doing a little troll for the Buccaneers. Their video was Halo inspired. And when it got to the Bucs, they're invading a pirate ship. They go down there, and you see in the corner Big Mike with the I and the E being the 1 and the 3, as Mike is known to do. It says Big Mike has left the chat. Well played by the Chargers. The Bucs video also fantastic. A couple of really nice cameos in that one. If you haven't seen that, go check it out. A Baywatch parody with 2 offensive linemen and Burt Kreischer. It's gold. It really is. Let's see. We got Jimbo Shrump. I haven't seen Jimbo in a long time. Jimbo, great to have you in the chat. I want to be optimistic, but we got to see the dog in these boys. Trust me. I promise you will. 100% you will. I've spent a lot of time talking over the last couple of weeks about how this team has made a concerted effort to change the attitude and the personality of this team. They got themselves some dogs, and you are going to see that play out on the field. Mark my words. I'm making you a promise, Jimbo Shrub. Trust me. All right. I have to do it, but I reserve the right to change my mind. It's time to do some predictions. That is coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs. Ever opened your bank account and thought, where did all my money go? You're not alone. Keeping track of subscriptions, spending, and bills can get overwhelming fast. That's where Rocket Money comes in, helping you take control of your finances all in one place. It tracks all your subscriptions in one spot and can help cancel the ones that you don't need in just a few taps. It automatically categorizes your spending so you can actually see where your money is going, and you can set budgets, get alerts, and stay on top of upcoming bills. It just makes everything feel more organized and gives you a clearer picture of your finances on a day-to-day basis. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. Let Rocket Money help you reach your financial goals faster. Join at rocketmoney.com/locked on. That's rocketmoney.com/locked on. Wrapping things up here on this live schedule reaction episode of Locked On Bucs. And while I'm going through these predictions, here's what I want you guys in the live chat to do. You guys are awesome. I love the interaction that I see going on in there. I want you guys to drop in the chat which game you're most looking forward to and which games you're going to if you're not a season ticket holder. I'm curious to see what kind of road trips people are making and which matchups you guys are prioritizing. And real quick, I have to address this because this to me seems like a somewhat newer viewer or listener. Well, we got Boat Mechanic. It says, James is not a Bucs fan. Hope you know that. It's just his job. Boat Mechanic, I have followed the Tampa Bay Buccaneers since 1995. I grew up in a house where my dad was a fan of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, so I grew up following them. Both of my sons are Tampa Bay Buccaneers fans. This, yes, is my job, one of my jobs. It's also my passion. So I have followed the Buccaneers since I was 10 years old. So it's a little more than just a job. I get it. Not all media is fans. My quote-unquote fandom has changed since I entered the media world, but you're talking about somebody who started following the Buccaneers when they were still creamsicle and they still stunk. So just figured I'd throw that out there. All right. You all know that I think win-loss predictions on schedule release day is ridiculous and crazy and way, way too early, considering that no teams have even had OTAs, let alone mandatory minicamp. We're 2.5 months from training camp, so there's no way we could accurately decipher what kind of team the Bucs are going to be and what kind of teams they are going to face. It's all projections right now. But we're going to do it anyway because it's fun, and as always, I reserve the right to change my mind, so don't hold me to this when I do it again before the start of the regular season. Let's get to it. Talked about week 1 already. I know a lot of you remember that I had never covered a Bucs win in person. That was until the Bucs were in Cincinnati 2 years ago for preseason, and they won while I was the only Bucs media in attendance other than Rondé Barber and Chris Myers, who were doing the TV broadcast. Watched Team USA basketball win gold with Rondé Barber, one of the coolest moments of my life. Anyway, the Bucs are going to win in week 1 and handle business in the Queen City. Week 2 against the Browns. Baker is not going to let the Bucs lose. Bucs are 2-0 again under Todd Bowles. Week 3, they win against Minnesota. Week 4, they win against Green Bay. 4-0 start for this Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Week 5, prime time in Jerry World. The streak ends. The Bucs lose. They're 4-1. Week 6, back home against the Steelers. Bucs win 5-1. Week 7 at Carolina. They're setting the tone against the division. That's a win. They're 6-1. Week 8, home against Atlanta. Robinson against his old team. Baker against his old coach. Bucs win. They're 7-1. Week 9, I think they lose this one. All the talk will be about Caleb Williams, but I think it'll be Chicago's defense that wins this one for them. It'll be low scoring. It'll come down to the fourth quarter, probably a field goal within the last 2 minutes, but this is going to be a loss heading into the bye. My stepson just texted me and said, y'all are not beating my Packers. He said the same thing the last 3 times that the Bucs and Packers have faced one another, including the NFC Championship. So he's officially grounded. Week 11, coming out of the bye at Detroit. I said this one could be a trap game. Detroit hosts the Bears 4 days later on Thanksgiving. I still think the Lions get it done. The Bucs lose. They're 7-3. Week 12, home against the Panthers. This is where they're going to split. Bucs won in Carolina. Carolina is going to win in Tampa. They are 7-4. Sky is falling. Fans are calling for Todd Bowles' head and for the first ever in-season firing of the Glazers ownership regime. Week 13, Chargers at home. Bucs get the win. They end the skid at 3 in a row. Mike McDaniel is overheard walking to the team bus that he should have taken the Tampa job, and he regrets all of his life's decisions. The Bucs are 8-4. Week 14, Baltimore. This one is a loss. Sorry, I'm not picking them to beat a team that they haven't beaten since I was in high school. The Bucs are 8-5. Week 15, home against the Saints. That's a win, 9-5. Week 16, at Atlanta. Same story as the first time. They sweep Atlanta for the first time since 2021. They're 10-5. Week 17, the Rams loss. See the Ravens. Got to see them do it before I can pick them to do it. Bucs are 10-6. Week 18, at the Saints, it's a win. Bucs go 5-1 in the division, 11-7 on the season, and they wind up the 3 seed in the NFC. As far as the games that I am most looking forward to, definitely Cincy, because I'll be there. And it's the first game of the year. It starts the football season. It's hard to be more excited about a game that's not week 1 or the Super Bowl. God help me if the Bucs lose, and I got to hear about it from all the Bengals fans that I deal with on a daily basis around here, both, within my friend groups, my family, my job, everybody. Please don't let that happen to me. I already had to deal with Ohio State beating Illinois. It's a nightmare. Other than that, the Packers and Steelers games, mostly for selfish reasons, as opportunities for me to harass my own family members. If the Bucs win, going to jump into the chat to see which games you all are excited about and which ones you are going to. Okay. Boat mechanic. And yeah, I see you said not starting beef. I absolutely understand. Mentioned that I said it before. Here's the distinction. I said this is not a fan podcast. So what I mean when I say that, there are podcasts that are fan driven. I come with a more even-keeled and neutral approach to what I'm seeing and what I think is going on. I'm not going to give fan service on this show. I think that's the distinction where that got mixed up. So yeah, there are fan podcasts. This is not one of those. I try to take a look at things from a different lens than how a fan views it. Trust me, if my son jumped on here to do this podcast, he would trade everyone and fire everyone after every loss. It's a complete disaster. All right, so we got JD. Recently moved to Tampa from California, so we'll absolutely be going to the Rams and Chargers games. I hope you're going to be wearing Buccaneers jerseys when you do so. Let's see. We got Looking forward to Baker torching the Browns. Destined for greatness. I want to go to the Monday night game versus the Panthers. Let's see. We got Joe. Bain will break Burrow into pieces on that first play. I'm not going to call first play, but Bain's going to give Burrow some trouble. Let's see. We got Big Buck, Kentucky Buck going opening day in Cincinnati. Go Bucks. I love that. Let's see. We got destined for greatness. Baker's going to throw for 4,300 yards and 41 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. I hope you are right about that. Everybody in the chat, I appreciate you guys. Let's be nice to Boat Mechanic. It was, it's not a big deal. Not a big deal at all. He was saying what he thought. It's cool. Everybody be nice to Boat Mechanic. He's one of us. We got JD following up. He says, of course, got my Vita jersey ready to go. Love that. Richard, I still have never been to Raymond James Stadium. Richard, I have never attended a game at Raymond James Stadium either. The one time that I was in Florida during football season, they played at Cleveland. That was in October of 2014. Might have been early November. But it was Mike Evans' rookie year. We went down to Florida, and the Bucs were in Ohio, of course. Let's see. We got Joe says, love to beat the Chargers again. Tired of hearing about Herbert. I don't know if we even know what Herbert is at this point in time. Richard, hate to say, but considering it's a nice schedule, but Bowles is still head coach, 9-7 record. It's going to be all right. It's going to be all right. Again, I look at the fundamental and foundational changes that they made to the defensive side of the ball. We know Todd Bowles' defense can work. He's not babysitting an offensive coordinator this year, and he's starting to get those pieces back that we saw in 2020 and 2021. I think a lot of fans are in for a surprise, and I think a lot of people in the NFL world are in for a big surprise as far as what this team is going to be capable of, as long as they stay healthy. Gotta stay healthy. All right. That is going to do it for this episode because I am way out of time. Again, thanks to all of you in the chat. You guys are the absolute best. Please check out everything going on Twitter at Locked On Bucs, at @JYarcho_Bucs, Instagram and TikTok at Locked On Bucs in both of those places. Subscribe on YouTube with the notifications turned on, as well as wherever you get your podcast. Join the Everydayer Club. Go to lockedonbucs.supercast.com or click the link in the show notes. If you want to support the show, but you don't want to become an Everydayer Club member, it's really, really simple. Like this episode on YouTube, leave a 5-star review wherever you get podcasts. Those things generally do, actually help other Buccaneers fans find the show. Hope you all have an absolutely outstanding day. Stay safe, stay healthy, fire the cannons. I want to thank you so much for joining me right here on Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team